It's bad enough when you have to listen to a very long speech, but can you imagine listening to that long speech and then listening to it again in a different language? You can imagine what that does to the audience and how much boredom it creates. My guest today is Raquel Bickford. She is the owner of ROQUE Events and the host of the Manifesting Your Dreams podcast, a wedding industry podcast. And we have a great chat talking about all types of things from mindfulness, watching your audience, to some of her best disaster stories. We talk about when there's too much oversight. We talk about the danger of open mics, talking about your sex life and your vows. Can you imagine? And what happens past a certain level from a design and experience standpoint. It's a great chat. Have a listen. My name is Brian Franklin. I am the co-founder of VowsSpeeches.com, where we help people write and practice personalized custom vows, wedding speeches, ceremony scripts, and all of the speaking parts for any kind of event. If you or someone you know needs help with one of these things, please reach out to VowsSpeeches.com. That's VOWSAND speeches.com, or you can email me directly at Brian, BRIAN, at VowsSpeeches.com. My guest today is Raquel Bickford of ROQUE Events and the Manifesting Your Dreams podcast. We are going to manifest some good talk about vows, speeches, and ceremonies today, and what she has seen good and bad and what works. But first, Raquel, tell me, do you have a horror story? Is there one thing that stands out in your past, watching weddings and seeing things happen?
Well, first, thank you so much for being on the show. I feel like since you were on my show, I was like, absolutely, I'm going to be on your show. So such an honor, and congratulations
Thank you.
on starting this up again.
Thank you.
I, you know, in my over a decade of event planning, I do have some stories that are just like, I wish that groomsmen were the father of the bride, just did things a little bit differently. And one that's like that immediately comes to my attention is we were at Timber Cove on the California coast, and it's such an interesting venue because everything is so spread apart. I mean, it is a trek down to dinner and a trek back up for dancing. It's in the dark. We have to bring in special lighting. Like the fog is coming in from the coast. We're only in a tent. There's only so much you can do with heat. And so we wanted to get through 4 speeches at dinner. Usually it's 2 at the first course, 2 at main, and then we either do cake cutting and then move on to dancing or champagne tower or whatnot. And the couple had requested to stop service during speeches, which is typical. And I would always say that the sweet spot for speeches is 2 to 3 minutes. Like, let's do a 2 to 3 minute speech that is thoughtful, heartfelt, to the point. Congratulations, here's a toast. I know you want to say all of your stories. I know you want to bring up all of like the humiliating things that you have done together. But when the father of the bride gave a 25-minute speech, he first wanted to speak in English, his speech, and then he wanted to say his entire speech again, I believe in Russian.
Oh boy. Let me stop you there for a second.
Yeah.
So I think the sweet spot is 3 minutes. I mean, we 2 minutes is great. 2 minutes can be hard for people to do, right? Realistically, there's so much to say. They want to get through both of them and whatnot. So 3 minutes gives you plenty of time. 4 minutes if there's good content, right? If it's really good. 5 minutes, it's pushing it, right?
Yeah, you're losing people's attention.
Sure. So 5 minutes is tough unless you're really, really, really good. And I just had a client, we're just peeling away words. The original thing I sent was about 4 minutes. It became 8, right away. She added a whole bunch of stuff back in, and then we had go through the trouble of like cutting out her favorite stories again, right?
Yeah.
And so you wind up back at like 4 maybe, but if you're lucky.
Yeah.
How did
And
it
so,
go? Like, what were
I
the
mean, it
reactions?
backfired really terribly because he wasn't the only speech.
Yeah,
He had another one after that.
right. And then you
And
get
then two more after
service.
that. And all of these speeches were so long. And, as much as I guide my couples the very best that I can when we're doing timeline creation, I always say like 2 to 5 minutes or 2 to 4 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes. And please tell your people that they really do want to go above and beyond, they feel like, and they want to give it their all. But this really backfired because the food was getting cold in the back. Everyone was getting bored. Everyone was getting freezing cold. And we were very late on getting everyone back up for the dance party.
What?
And then everyone was tired. And then half the people left for dancing. So it was
Yeah.
just
What are you
this.
doing as a planner when you're watching this happen? I mean, what do you do? I mean, do you say does he go automatically into the repeat of this? I mean, and you just can't. I mean, there's nothing to do. You can't just go up there and like rip the mic out of their hand, right? I
Yeah,
mean, what
to
are
compensate.
what are the options there in this point? Like you can, it's hard to
So
figure it out.
it's a very delicate dance that I have to do because I need to keep the timeline and keep us going. But I also have to respect the family, the couple, who have written those speeches and who want to have the floor to share their, thoughts and feelings and sentiments to the couple. So, I think what I did was after, and this was several years ago. This was like before the pandemic. No, this was right in the middle of the pandemic. I think this was like 2021. Um, I went up to the couple and I was like, "Hey, I just want to let you know, like, are you sure you want to continue to stop service when we go into the next speech?" And they said yes. And so as long as a planner, I'm communicating the timeline in a very gentle way to the couple, it's their decision.
Yeah, it's really hard because people that aren't used to doing this. I've said this on other podcast episodes, but they don't know what it looks like on a page, right? They don't know what 2 minutes looks like on a page or 3 minutes looks like on a page. It's you can look it up. I mean, people can figure that out, or you
Yeah.
can actually practice it and time it. But if somebody doesn't do that and they just write their hearts out, oh, this seems like a good speech, and it turns out to be 5 pages of material, then you're easily at 10 minutes. Easily.
Right.
I mean, a page, the way I look at it, it really depends on how densely it's written, how many paragraphs and whatnot. But you're looking at 2 to 3 minutes a page at 11-point font with normal margins, really.
Right.
If one page and a quarter gets you there, right? Usually.
Yeah.
If you have good line breaks. If people are just like writing big, dense paragraphs, then it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And it also depends on how fast people talk.
Hmm.
So you have someone like me who talks reasonably fast and blows through it, then yeah, if you're talking 200 words a minute, you're going to get through it. But if
Right.
you're one of those people that drags out every word and talks like this and
Or
then
goes
takes
off on a
space
tangent
or takes
and
another
goes
minute, right,
off
right,
script, then you're
right.
like, wait, I see you have 10 flashcards. Like we've got to get through them, you know?
And this is another thing that people should think about when they're talking either to their clients or to their parents or best friends. It's that if they have bullet points, they're going to start elaborating and winging.
Mhm.
And you can't really pay attention to the clock when you're doing that. People aren't that great at multitasking. So you're just
Right.
going to keep talking without the sense of it. Now, this is where I was at Engage and the speakers were fantastic recently. But, and this goes for almost every conference I ever go to, there's always one or two speakers where the presentation takes over and that becomes the priority even more so than the audience's enjoyment or
Hmm.
comprehension of it is, right? They're going to
Right.
get through every slide of their presentation and they're going to push through all the way regardless of what people are doing in the audience. And you can look around the room and people start dropping their heads to their phones. You could watch it happen. And I was sitting
Fumbling,
I like to
talking.
sit on the back and the side so I can watch the audience a little bit, and see what's happening and see how they're reacting. And there's so many ways to tell when an audience is paying attention and they're engaged.
Yes.
And if you're up on stage and you're not paying attention to that, then what you're saying is my presentation is the priority and not your enjoyment of it.
Absolutely.
And as a wedding speaker, you have two audiences. You have the couple, which is it's your gift to the couple, your tribute to the couple, and you're there to speak to the audience. And if the audience is looking down and they're just going, oh God, if you could tell, which I'm sure they could tell in your situation, I would imagine that people,
Oh, the draping over the chair
right, yeah,
was not actually good service at Timbercombe, so we couldn't, there was no phone access.
yeah.
Ugh.
Uh,
I know we're like both like dreading that happening again.
the
I'm like,
but
don't.
it happens so much, and like, how do you not know as a speaker that this is like I've got to change course here?
I'll tell you, mindfulness.
Mindfulness, that's what they
It's
need. Yes.
it's going back to what I say on my show is a lot of people let their mind control them and they don't control their mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're hyper focused on what they have to do and they're not aware of their surroundings.
So, what? First of all, before we move forward, are there other stories that you have, or is
Oh
is
yeah.
that like
I've got two.
let's
I've got two.
let's hear the other one, and then we'll go backwards a little bit.
Okay, this was last summer. And bless his heart, okay, it was the best man. And he brought props and he gave the groom a beer and he had a beer and he was just like taking the audience, right, the wedding guest on this journey of their entire relationship. Okay, and stop number one is this place. And it wasn't connecting with the audience. It was just more of like, and then we did this, and then we did this, and then we did this, and then here, and haha, here's a hat, put on the hat. And the groom was also like uncomfortable because it was taking so long. He had so many different props. And then he was like, okay, one more stop, everybody. And everyone was like, oh, you can hear it, right? And I was also like, oh,
That's
okay,
amazing.
do your thing, do your thing. Again, I have to be that respectful person as the planner and not interrupt and be like, hey,
Yeah,
you know. And so yeah, it's like it's going over it above and beyond.
going too far. Yeah, just
Too far.
like I'm gonna try something new. I'm gonna shake the room up a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I
It's
live in
long.
Los Angeles, and we're reasonably close to the Comedy Store. And when people see these comedy routines on Netflix or whatever, they forget perhaps that these things have been tested in increments in the Comedy Store at improvs where they drop in, they do 20 minutes, they test their jokes, they test their jokes, they test their bits, and they
Right.
drop the stuff that doesn't work or doesn't flow with the rest of it, right? And so you have people that come in and they think they're going to be comedians right out of the gate. That they've got this routine, it's in their head. They've never tested it once. They might not even talk to their significant other about it. They're just going to go in with some idea, right?
Internal dialogue,
Right.
thinking that, yeah.
And then if it falls even slightly flat, what are you going to do, right?
Right.
But that's again like, okay, well, maybe I'm going to do 6 stops instead of 8. Maybe mindfulness here plays a part, right?
Right.
Mindfulness. You go in, maybe you take a little look at it. Are people resonating? Does anybody look nervous?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
you're going to do more,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
What about ceremonies? Well, actually, before we get to that, what have you seen go right? What are some of the things that worked for people either in their maid of honor speech or their father of the bride speech or something like that?
Yeah. Let's just focus on a maid of honor here. What a big like to do when the bride's like, okay, and you're giving a toast at, during the main course, and the maid of honor can't eat or drink until after their speech because they're so nervous. Basically, a good solid toast, in my opinion, is 2 to 3 minutes. And it's heartfelt, maybe one or two stories, not humiliating stories, like really like I don't like when people do like, and then she did this. Like it just brings the love and attention on the couple like down. So I always like to elevate the couple, elevate the bride or whoever you're talking to, cherish your friendship, and then give like, let's raise a toast, like nail it on a high note. And everybody puts their drink in the air and they're like, wow, that was great. And everyone's clapping and maybe a little humor in it. So get a little laugh, but like, that's perfect. I'm
Mm-hmm.
always like, oh, yes, that was good, because I hear speeches all the time and I just like want to applaud. And I always go up to them and I'm like, you nailed it. And they're like, oh my gosh, thank you.
We talked about things that make people laugh, but what about making them cry? Like, what are the devices or whether it's talking about a story or what are the moments that make people cry, in your opinion?
I think a lot of the times when let's just keep on the maid of honor thing,
Mm-hmm.
when everyone starts to get a tear in their eye is when you build up the bride and then you introduce like the groom, or bride or groom and
Mm-hmm.
groom, but you introduce the other partner into the story. And when they're like, I knew that they were the one, and this is the reason why, you get goosebumps and you're like, oh yes. And then and then it's just like that, you're folding the partner into the story, I think is
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah, I mean, and there are two aspects of love, right? One is the love that you have for the person that you're the maid of honor for, right? The bride, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the love that you may have for their partner. And then perhaps the third, not perhaps, definitely the third, the love that they have, that you're observing externally, that they have together, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
telling different love aspects of love stories. And if you forget that, then it can go awry, right? If you forget one piece of it, if you don't talk about them as a couple, if you don't talk about the other person,
Right.
which is another piece I hate, right? When you hear this speech and it's like, and it's about the maid of honor, it's about the bride, and you guys are so great together, you're perfect together, goodbye, right? And you're like, oh.
Yeah, you're like, oh, okay, well, okay, she nailed it on the
Yeah,
timing.
has she not met the person?
Is she not really happy in
Right.
that relationship?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that brings up another aspect is, have you run into situations the where the maid of honor doesn't like the bride's partner or the groom's partner?
Let me dig into my files here.
Where you
Oh,
knew that there was
yeah,
bad blood at some level
yeah.
for
There was
somebody?
bad blood on both sides. Hmm.
Really?
They didn't, neither families wanted this couple to get married.
How did that
One of the
go?
friends came up to me and was like, I don't know if you're noticing at this cocktail hour, but it's like oil and water here. And I was like, I sense the tension.
Yeah. Were the speeches problematic, or did they get through it
I'll be
without?
honest with you, they had no speech. They ended the
Okay,
wedding.
that's
Yeah.
probably smart.
It was that is the most awkward Roque events moment of my career.
Oh,
You
really?
know,
They just
having
stopped?
all of this designed and then it was just like, yeah, we're not doing this anymore. We're leaving. Like it's bad.
Oh, wait, they
That was
stopped the wedding?
yes.
Oh my God!
I was like,
Wow.
well, can can we still take photos of everything?
What?
This is
Yeah,
all
right.
set up, like it's all
Like you paid for it. Can we just get some good
like,
marketing
do you
material?
want content? That was the yeah.
What prompted? Like, was there an event that happened during the wedding that they just decided they're going to stop and not continue?
I think it was the tension
Yeah.
between families. And, here's the thing, they're still together today. That was over 10 years. That was about 10 years ago, eight.
Wow.
Ago. And we friends with them on the bride on Facebook or whatever, not Facebook. What am I saying? Facebook, Instagram. They're still together and they have two kids.
That's
So
great. Yeah.
I don't know what happened on their wedding day, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I've had a couple of clients. that said to me, look, Brian, to be honest with you, I really don't like the person that they're marrying. I don't really have a lot of exposure to them. The exposure I have had, I don't like. I hear things, but she's my best friend or she's my sister, and I've been asked to do this. So what do I do, right? And the simple answer is forget about how you feel for a moment. What do they want? What do they want to hear? What is going to make the wedding better for them? Even if your best friend or your sister, whoever it was, knows that this is not completely true. But if you get up there and you say what they're looking for you to say and you play the part, then they'll be happy. This is not a confessional. You're not supposed to get up there and spill your heart out about how you really feel in this moment. No one's really asking you to do that. They're asking you.
That's when I say, like,
Yeah.
sometimes in speeches, I'm, oh, that's probably should have been an intimate moment between the two of them instead of like airing out the laundry.
Never air out laundry, right?
Yeah.
Never expose something that isn't 100% going to go well.
Or you think it's going to be funny. Remember we talked about the funny laughable moments. That's not that some people may not be mindful enough to realize that what they're saying actually hurts somebody rather than gets a positive funny reaction from people.
And if you're a maid of honor or best man or father or mother of the bride or groom and you're listening to this and you're not sure and you're not 100% sure, just ask your son or daughter and say, hey, are you cool with me talking about this?
Totally.
Right? It's all you have to do is just ask. And they may say, look, I would rather you didn't mention that I was on Tinder when I met my husband or whatever. Or I mean, some people are fine with that. Most people in my clients, well, I would say 80% of them met on a dating app and they talk about it most of the time. You too? Yeah. So, but just ask. Like if there's a story, are you cool with me telling this story? I want to reference this story. You're cool with that? If it's even slightly risque, if it's even slightly potentially embarrassing, and you don't do that, you're risking the possibility of blowing up the wedding.
Yeah. Now let's flip the script for a second
Right.
on a real wedding that I had last fall.
Okay.
The bride had a chokehold on this wedding. Okay. It had to be like this and it had to be like that and it had to be like this and this and this and this. And it's fine. But she also did that with the people who were speaking at the three events. She's like, I want to read your script. She actually hired someone to read their scripts. And she was like cutting their scripts and you can't do this and you can't do that. I'm totally okay with this if she approached it in a more positive way. So, like, I would have loved for her to work with you, and like you would have been like, okay, let's take this like a softer approach about it.
Mm-hmm.
But she was just like, I need to proofread, and I can make cuts, and I can say whatever I want. I'm going to control what you say. And that also is like on the other side,
Right.
like
You're sterilizing
bad taste in their mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, why am I?
You're taking the fun out of it. First of all, I don't think I've had a couple of couples want to read the ceremony ahead of time, the ceremony narrative. And usually when we work with someone and we're working with a friend or a family officiant, and it's very personal, and so we interview the couple, and then we interview the friend or family member that knows them, and then I work with the officiant themselves, and we complete the script apart from the couple. The couple hears it for the first time, generally the day of the wedding. That's how you get real reactions, and everybody laughs, and so on and so forth. Some people don't want to do that. Occasionally, you'll get somebody to say, I want to see the ceremony itself. I want to make sure, because perhaps they don't trust their Uncle Roy, or they just want to know what's going to happen. That's fine. Totally, they're right. But it does take out some of the fun occasionally. They do excise a little bit of energy out of it, because you want people to laugh, and sometimes they do. But it's totally their right, and it's only happened a few times. But when it comes to speeches, I can see saying to somebody, and effectually encourage it, hey, show it to somebody. Show it to this person. Whether it's me or some other professional, show it to them. make sure somebody's got some oversight that has some practical thinking and some experience in the wedding industry and knows what this is supposed to look like and do.
Right.
But to edit someone else's words about you is a little harsh, right?
I know.
It's a little harsh.
And do you know what happened at their welcome dinner?
Tell
Is
me. Let's
someone
go.
gave a rogue speech and he literally said, I'm not going to say her name. I know you didn't want people to give speeches that weren't on the list and pre-approved by you. Like he like stuck it to her in that way, and she was looking at him like she was gonna just scratch his face off. And he gave a great little toast, and it was totally fine. And it was the groom's friend, and he wasn't selected, but it really had a good like meaning, and actually was one of my favorites of the night.
And that can
Like,
happen.
but she was
Just as
furious.
likely, though, and that's why I would tell people open mics are dangerous. Like sometimes people just go up and grab the mic, and you gotta, it gets, the mechanics of stopping that can be impossible. But having a deliberate open mic where somebody's like, okay, well, we'll just have people get up and say things whenever they want. It's like never do
It
that.
also it like hurts the timeline.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's so hard. It's so hard to like this Thursday. There's a rehearsal dinner. There's only 38 people. That's fine. But they were like, I was like, who do you want to give, toasts? And they were like, just like get up from your seat. And I was like having a mini heart attack. Okay, well, like how many people do you think is gonna like 10? And I was ah,
When
you only have two courses, right? First.
I love it when people that are not used to giving speeches get up there and just knock it out of the park, right?
Oh yeah.
The people that can do it without help because they just put their mind to it, that's fantastic. But they are
Yeah.
far outweighed by the people who think they can do it and can't. Right?
Yes.
And that's I think when people get it in their heads that look, it's not the same thing as going into your boardroom or to your company or whatever it might be. It's not the same thing. Because when you're the boss, perhaps, or you're the manager, no one's going to stop you, and no one's going to. They're just going to talk behind your back. But in this case, we're talking about something emotional that has one really important person in your life, at least, perhaps two, that are sitting there who've put all their love and time into this thing, and you're just going to mess it up, right? We're take a chance on it. And so that's why you have to show it to people. You have to test it out. You have to time it. You have to do all that stuff. Let's talk for a minute or two about ceremonies. Are there anything in the ceremony, either in the vows or the ceremony itself, is there anything that stands out in your head as a terrible ceremony that you've seen, either yours or somebody else's?
Yeah. So let's focus on the couple's vows to each other when they write them on their own. It really kind of breaks my heart a little bit and I'm just going to have a bride and groom scenario when like the bride pours her heart out or vice versa, but like one of them pours their heart out and talks for like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and then the other person is like 30 seconds.
Yeah, Chiffon Myers in the previous episode was talking about that, where she had one where same scenario, and the groom goes, "Yeah, this is great," or something like that. It was like it literally spoke for like 20 seconds. This is really
Nobody
great.
can see me, but I literally just like choked myself. Like that would be,
Yeah,
or if like somebody was like, yeah, same, babe.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
What you said, what she said.
Yeah, copy that, copy paste. Thanks, honey. Like it's heartbreaking because this is your moment. If you want to do it, in front of everybody, or a person, like before you get married to go down the aisle, is just this is your moment to like really. This is your wedding day. Like
Yeah,
this is your chance to like really like spill your heart out on like how much love you have for this person and the reasons why and talk about the future and just say that you want to go through everything together. Like that is your time
yeah.
to do that.
Have you noticed that, particularly on second weddings and older brides and grooms, that they're a lot more risque in what they want to say in their vows? Have you come
Like
across
what?
that?
Well, give me some
I I've
examples.
had a couple of them. I've had at least two, and I have to think about this. Want to talk about their sex life in
Stop.
in the vows that there's, it makes some reference to, like,
Never had that.
and you really
But
rock my world, or, and I've had a lot of grooms want to talk about their wives' butts.
ah,
I've that's happened a lot, and
I don't have that in the second marriage because I all my couples are like first time.
mhm,
I've only had maybe two that were older that, you know, second marriage, let's go all out.
yeah.
And in my recollection, they only did the vows as what the officiant told them to say. They didn't do their own vows.
I had one that it was this guy was great. It was actually really fun, but he proposed to his wife, I guess, after a romp in in their hotel room or in a room, and so there, he's telling me this story, and we're there, we are buck ass naked, and I decided now was the right moment and brought the
And
ring
he
out,
said that.
and I'd love to talk about that, and I'm like, well, probably leave this part of it out, but
Totally,
yeah,
totally. No, if you want to have personal vows before the ceremony, like during your first look, like go for it, right? Like, but you're also speaking in front of your closest family and friends, and I would be respectful of what they want to hear
yeah,
too.
I think the idea of personalization has to extend to the content, right?
Hmm.
And we're spending so much money on these weddings now, especially when you get into the elevated or luxury or the
Ultra luxury,
icon.
yeah,
I heard the other day, right? I don't really know
yeah.
where you draw the lines between them, and it really doesn't matter. But ultimately, even if you're spending $30,000, the
Hmm.
portion of your wedding, which by the way is probably not the weddings that you're doing there in California, but even at that level, even if you have a small wedding of 30 or 40 of your favorite people in a barn at your parents' house,
Yep.
that you still want that part to be meaningful, and you still have a pretty good chunk of your wedding devoted to spoken word, right? Whether it's the ceremony, the vows, and then the speeches. At minimum, in the speeches, you're looking at 15 to 20 minutes, really, by the time you've
Yeah.
added it all up. That's still a good chunk of time in a wedding. That's probably a quarter of the wedding by the time you add it up, in a
Right.
4 hour wedding.
Yeah.
And so that's the part that when I started this business, I was looking at it. I'm like, I can't believe that people are just leaving it up to chance, right? That there isn't an industry for to service this aspect of it, right? That was the reason we started the business. But the other reason is that it's just fun to hear. But it was funny because my first wedding, I didn't even think about it. My second wedding, I didn't think about it, about doing our own vows. It really wasn't until later on when I started officiating for a few friends and family members, then I was like, oh, this would be cool. Raquel, tell me about what you're doing now. I mean, give us a snapshot of what you're doing there in Northern California, and what you have coming up, and what you're looking forward to.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been this big dreamer, and even though I'm getting older, I'm still this huge dreamer, and I want to be the best and do the best and give it my all and be international and all of that. So I feel like right now I am in this transition period with Roque events where, the average wedding currently for this year is, anywhere between 400 and 500,000. And, my goal for next year is to get into the 500 to $1 million weddings. And I believe I can do it. I want to do it not because I'm like, oh, well, $100,000 weddings are just, boring or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. It's just I have so much more to give design wise. And I always like my first thing that I thought I wanted to be was like a fashion show producer in LA and New York. And that's like just big thinking. That's just big production. That's where I like strive. And so that's where Roque Events is going. It is my ultimate goal to be, I'm just going to manifest this, to be Bride's top planner in the US. So heavily working on that, continuing the podcast. And also, I'm on the board of directors for Society Privé, which is previously known as the W Society. And I'm now getting a new platform to host brunches and educate my fellow colleagues. And
Awesome.
it gives me the opportunity to be a guest speaker at their summits. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is everything that I've ever wanted.
That's fantastic.
That's a
Tell us about
nutshell.
the podcast, Manifesting Your Dreams.
Yeah, Manifesting Your Dreams, a wedding industry podcast. I just, I love education. I love empowering people, educating people. And I wanted to tie in, I wanted to be really niche with it. So, manifesting your dreams. How do you manifest? What is manifest? It's okay if you believe in God or the universe, as long as we have faith in something. And how do we apply our spirituality and our faith to our career, specifically in the wedding industry? Because this industry is tough. It is hard. I'm not going to lie and say, oh, well, if you just manifest, it's going to be easy. But I'm speaking with people like you on how we got to where we are today and how we want to manifest our greatest future, but also talk about how to become a great photographer, how to start your own business, how to be a wedding planner. And so that's really what the podcast is all about.
It's a great podcast. I've been really enjoying it. I was just going backwards in my head a second, thinking about the differences between $100,000 wedding and a $500,000 wedding and $1 million wedding in terms of what's possible, right? And some of the things that I've been exposed to. I mean, my own wedding was south of all of those, but when you start seeing the kinds of experiences that people can manifest in design, just the use of humans as decorative objects, right? Dressed a certain way, doing certain things as part of the artistic design of it all, right? Whether it's pouring, champagne. There was the lady when we were there in Boca that was in the big beach chair pouring champagne, right? Or
yes. Oh, yeah, the lifeguard.
yeah, the lifeguard,
Yes.
right? And then in the last one I went to, they had women and maybe a man, but definitely women that were suspended 40 feet in the air, dressed as angels and they would sway back and forth, and it was incredible. But it was beautiful, right? Things like that people can do if they have the money to spend on it, and some do, but certainly not necessary, right? It's just an extension of the creative process, and you have people like yourself that can dream up these ideas to make little details stand out, and also to bring big pieces in that when you're walking through or walking into the event, you're going, whoa, I haven't seen that before. Man, that's beautiful, or whatever. And that level of refinement is both expensive and labor. You have labor costs and all types of things, and materials,
Like
trucking fees and insurance.
Everything.
Right. Thank you for joining me today on the podcast. These are great stories, and it's a lot of fun to talk to you. Call out to our friends at Table 3, which we'll remember. We won't forget forever. We will remember forever until we forget. That's how it works.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great.
It's always great chatting with
Wishing you luck. And how can people find you?
Yeah, at ROQUE Events is really everything. ROQUE EVENTS on Instagram, and roqueevents.com.
Thank you.
Oh, and then Manifesting Your Dreams.
And Manifesting Your Dreams.
Or Apple.
Yeah. Manifesting Your Dreams on Apple Podcasts. Go check that out. Raquel Bickford, ROQUE Events, thank you again, and we'll see you next time. If you need help with your vows, your wedding speech, or your ceremony script, you want to make it personal, you need some help practicing it, Visit vowsandspeeches.com. That's VOWSAND speeches.com. You can reach out to me there. You can send me an email at Brian, BRIAN, at vowsandspeeches.com. But I would love to help you.